Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into a really pivotal period in Indian history today.
Oh, definitely pivotal.
It's the era from about 1707 right up to India's independence in 1947.
Wow, so that's
Yeah, it's a big chunk of
it
time.
is a big chunk.
But what makes it so fascinating is that you can see these blueprints for modern India starting to emerge.
Oh, blueprints.
Yeah, like all the different
All
visions
right.
for what the nation could be, how it could be structured.
All the ideas swirling around.
Exactly, and the debates that came with those ideas.
It was a time of immense change, wasn't it? Not just about kicking out the British, but figuring out what came next, you know?
Totally, like trying to build a house, but you don't even agree on the floor plan first, right?
Exactly. So where do we even begin with something this massive?
Well, let's start with the foundation, those early signs of nationalism.
Okay, the roots of the movement.
Exactly, and we know that the Mughal Empire is on its way out by the 18th century, but how did that actually translate into these early nationalist stirrings?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because on the surface, an empire crumbling doesn't scream birth of a nation.
Right.
But think of it this way. Imagine a huge tree falling in a forest.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
All of a sudden there's light, space.
Where there wasn't any before.
Exactly. The Mughal decline created that kind of vacuum, a power vacuum.
Oh, I see.
And all these regional powers saw an opportunity
To step in.
to grow, to assert themselves.
Like everyone's vying for a piece of that sunlight.
Exactly. And the Sikhs are a prime example. They had been interacting, even clashing with Muslim dynasties for centuries.
Right, they were already a force to be reckoned with.
They were, and they saw a chance not just for power, but to really solidify their identity, push back against that Mughal control.
So it wasn't just about filling a political void,
No, it was about identity.
asserting who they were.
Precisely. A distinct cultural and religious identity.
Now, you mentioned the Sikhs, and I can't help but think of Banda Bahadur, their leader who led a revolt against the Mughals.
Oh, he was a fascinating figure.
A true warrior.
Absolutely.
And he was actually fighting for a Sikh state, wasn't he?
He was.
It's almost like a preview of the larger fight for independence that was to come later.
Exactly. Banda Bahadur's story isn't just some historical footnote.
Right. It's more than that.
It speaks to this larger pattern of regional identities challenging that imperial authority.
And we see that throughout Indian history.
Absolutely. Look at the Marathas in the West. Same idea.
So we've got these regional powers emerging, but what about those intellectual debates, those blueprints for a nation we talked about? What were some of the big ideas floating around at the time?
Ah, yes, the battle of ideas. This is where things get really complex and interesting.
Right, because it's more than just military might.
Absolutely. It's about vision, competing visions of what India should be.
And who should lead it?
Exactly.
So who are some of the key thinkers shaping these visions?
Well, you have someone like Vinayak Damodar Savarkar who really crystallized this concept of Hindu nationalism.
Hindu nationalism, that's a
Yeah.
loaded term.
It is, and it's important to understand how he envisioned it. He was writing in the early 1920s, and for him, it was all about territory, race, and culture.
Okay, so those were the three pillars.
He believed that a Hindu nation needed to be defined by these elements specifically.
It sounds pretty different from what the Congress Party was advocating for at the time,
And
right?
you're picking up on a key tension here.
Because I thought they were pushing for a more secular, united India.
They were. Think of it as India for everyone, regardless of religious background.
Right, inclusivity was a big part of their platform.
Exactly. Whereas Savarkar's ideology, it was more about India for Hindus.
Wow, so you have these two completely different visions for what India could be.
And that difference, it was fundamental to understanding the tensions, the political climate,
It's like a fork in the road.
and which path you choose has huge consequences.
It makes you wonder how things might have unfolded if those visions had been more aligned.
A very different India, perhaps.
Now, I know language also played a huge role in all this. I mean, India has so many different languages.
Oh, it's an incredibly diverse linguistic landscape.
And they're not just ways of speaking, are they? They're connected to regional identities, cultures.
Absolutely. Language is deeply tied to identity. And between 1000 and 1300 CE, you see these regional languages truly blossoming.
Like which ones?
Marathi, Bengali, Assamese, Oriya, just to name a few.
And they're challenging the dominance of Sanskrit, which had been the main language for centuries, right?
Exactly. Sanskrit was the language of scholarship, literature, but these regional languages.
They were the language of the people.
Precisely. And so you have this incredible diversity flourishing.
Instead of one unifying language.
Which has a profound impact on how people see themselves, their place in the world.
It's like each region is developing its own distinct voice.
and its own cultural identity.
It makes you think about how language can either unite or divide a nation, you know.
It's a powerful tool, that's for sure.
So we've got these political and linguistic forces shaping India. But we can't forget about the social structures that were already in place, right?
Ah, yes, the elephant in the room.
The caste system,
It's something we can't ignore, especially when we're talking about nation building.
because it's all about equality, unity, right?
In theory, yes, but the caste system presents a huge challenge to those ideals.
Because it's deeply ingrained in Indian society.
It is. It's a hierarchy that's been around for centuries, determining your social status, occupation, even who you can marry.
It's like an invisible web shaping people's lives.
A web that's hard to break free from, and it's tied to this concept of karma.
Right, karma, the idea that your actions in this life determine your next.
And it's fascinating how it was used to both explain and justify social inequality.
It's like saying, well, you must have done something bad in your past life to deserve this.
Exactly, and that's what makes it so powerful, but also so problematic.
Because how do you build a nation based on equality?
When you have these deeply ingrained structures that reinforce inequality,
Yeah, it seems almost impossible.
it's a monumental challenge, and one that India is still grappling with today.
It makes you wonder how you even begin to address something so deeply rooted in society.
It requires a fundamental shift in thinking, a reimagining of what a just society looks like.
It's a challenge that's faced societies throughout history, trying to reconcile these deeply rooted inequalities with these ideals of a just and equal society.
Absolutely. It's a universal struggle in many ways.
It's interesting, we've been talking about ideas, political movements, but I think we sometimes forget that even buildings, the physical structures around us, they tell stories about power, about cultural change.
Oh, absolutely. Architecture is like a language.
It speaks volumes.
It does. Every building, every monument, it reflects the beliefs, the aesthetics, the ideas of the people who built it.
So it's not just about bricks and mortar.
It's about the stories those structures tell, the history embedded within them.
Can you give me an example of how architecture reflects those power shifts, those cultural exchanges we've been discussing?
We'll take the Nine Baysum plan, for instance. Remember how we talked about the Mughals adopting that style?
Right, the Nine Bay Tomb Plan, that's a pretty specific layout, isn't it?
It is. It's a central chamber surrounded by 8 smaller rooms, all under a single dome, and the Mughals borrowed this style from the Timurids.
Who are the Timurids?
They were a dynasty that ruled Persia and Central Asia centuries earlier.
Oh, wow.
So you have this architectural style traveling across empires, across cultures.
It's like a physical manifestation of cultural exchange.
Exactly. It shows how ideas, influences, they don't stay confined by borders.
It's amazing how something as seemingly simple as a building layout can tell us so much.
Architecture is full of these hidden stories, these connections.
Are there any other examples of this architectural blending that stand out to you?
Oh, tons. Take the Charbagh Gardens, for instance.
The Charbagh Gardens, those are those beautiful symmetrical gardens, right?
They are divided into 4 quadrants by waterways, often with a central fountain or pavilion.
I've seen pictures, they're stunning.
They are, and they symbolize paradise in Islamic tradition.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They were introduced to India by the Mughal Emperor Babur, but the Mughals didn't just copy the style wholesale.
Right, they put their own spin on it.
Exactly. They incorporated local flora, design elements, they made it their own.
It's like saying, we appreciate your style, but we're going to add our own flair.
Exactly. Even gardens can be a statement of cultural identity.
It makes me want to visit one of these Charbagh Gardens and see this fusion of styles for myself.
You should. They're truly remarkable.
But let's shift gears a bit and talk about a figure who's almost synonymous with India's fight for independence, Mahatma Gandhi.
Ah, Gandhi, a towering figure, but also a complex and fascinating one.
Right, he's often simplified, iconified.
He is, and it's important to remember that he was a real person with flaws, complexities, just like all of us.
So what are some of the nuances that often get missed when we talk about Gandhi?
Well, he was a staunch advocate for a united India, and the partition, it broke his heart.
It must have been devastating for him to see the country he fought for being divided like that.
It was a profound tragedy in his eyes.
But what's often overlooked is that his political influence, it actually waned after World War II.
You're right, he became increasingly marginalized within the political landscape.
So even though he's revered as the father of the nation, he wasn't necessarily calling the shots in those final years leading up to independence.
Not entirely. His vision of a unified, nonviolent India, it clashed with the rising tide of communal tensions.
And those tensions, they were becoming impossible to ignore.
Sadly, they were, and tragically, in 1948, he was assassinated by a Hindu fanatic.
The stark reminder that even amidst those celebrations of independence, those deep divisions remained.
It's a sobering thought, isn't it? That the work of creating a truly united and equitable society, it doesn't end with the Declaration of Independence.
It's an ongoing process, a constant struggle.
It is, and it requires vigilance, commitment, and a willingness to confront those uncomfortable truths about ourselves, about our history.
It really highlights the idea that nation building is never truly finished. It's a constant process of negotiation, compromise, and sometimes even conflict.
Exactly. And the challenges that India faced during this period, those competing visions of nationhood, the social inequalities, the religious tensions, they didn't just disappear overnight.
It's like those fault lines, they just keep running beneath the surface.
They do, and they continue to shape India today in so many ways.
It makes you wonder how different things might be if some of those other visions had prevailed.
The what-ifs of history.
Right, like what if the Hindu nationalists had been in charge during partition? Or if the Congress had taken a different approach to social reform?
Fascinating questions. It really shows how history isn't just a straight line. It's full of these twists and turns, these forks in the road.
And each path leads to a completely different destination.
It does. And while we can't change the past exploring those alternative paths, it can give us a deeper understanding of the choices that were made, the forces that were at play.
It's like looking through a kaleidoscope and seeing all these different possibilities.
And appreciating the complexity of it all.
Now, even though Gandhi was marginalized towards the end of his life, his ideals of nonviolence and unity, they still resonate in modern India, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Gandhi's legacy is complex. There's no denying that.
It is.
But his impact on India's national consciousness, it's undeniable. He showed the world that resistance could be powerful without resorting to violence.
And those ideas, they continue to inspire people around the world.
They do a testament to the enduring power of his message.
So after this incredible journey through Indian history, what stands out to you? What's the key takeaway from all of this?
For me, it's the realization that the birth of modern India, it was anything but simple. It wasn't just about dates and battles. It was about ideas, identities, and that constant struggle to create a just and equitable society.
And it's a struggle that continues to this day in India and around the world.
It does, reminding us that the work of building a better future, it's never truly done.
And that's what makes history so relevant, right? By understanding the past, we can better understand the present and hopefully make more informed choices about the future.
I think that's a great place to leave it.
Well, I hope this deep dive has given you, our listener, a new appreciation for the complexities of India's journey to nationhood. It's a story filled with triumphs and tragedies, grand visions and stubborn realities, and it's a story that's still being written.
A story that we all have a part in shaping in our own way.
If any of the topics we've discussed have sparked your curiosity, I encourage you to delve deeper. There's a whole world of knowledge waiting to be explored. Until next time, keep those minds curious.